Be about $241,995. That's 51 times 13 times 365. And then your 40 Cook County inmates would be times the 13 times 275, which is 143,000, which comes to 384,995, which should be the figure that needs to be bumped up to. Again, we don't want to count our inmates before they're in jail, but I was encouraged by our discussion last week with Cook County. I was a little discouraged that they had to postpone, but I understand things happen. I still believe that we can get this done by the 1st of March. It's just going to, like I said, once we get the conference call done with the medical folks, get the resolution written and passed. They also wanted the minutes to showing that the resolution had actually been passed, and then signing the contract.
Do the minutes have to be approved for them to receive them?
I didn't ask for that. I don't know. I'll check with it.
Because when you have the minutes, probably the next, I don't want to push you, Phyllis, but the next day or a few days after the meeting on the 8th and that.
That was the other thing, is we were going to try to get the contract and the resolution language by the 8th, your next meeting, so that you'd be able to move that on and get it into them, so we can get maybe possibly before the 1st of March, but certainly at least by then.
The contract's written right, that it can have it under the vote.
She said she had a boilerplate contract that she basically just had to change some things and tweak it a little bit, and it should suffice. And the resolution said they have the resolution language that she'd send us the way they want it to read.
But you can find out whether we have to have the approved minutes or just minutes. That would help us tremendously.
Yeah.
I
would assume they want them approved, but I'll check and see.
Because if it is, maybe we could schedule a special meeting before a regular meeting and just approve those meeting minutes at the regular meeting then.
Sheriff, I have a few questions.
Sure.
First of all, I appreciate you coming here tonight. Thank you.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear. On Schedule A, which is on page 9 of the budget that was approved, we show total appropriations of $1,191,000.
Yeah, because I guess I'll have to take a look at what you got until she gets it to me.
Page 8. Page 8.
Mine, page 8. I'm on page 9.
Yeah, I think it's 8. The folders that
Oh,
we all
okay.
got.
Okay.
So what's the number now?
Yeah, my question is, what is the expense number with what your recalculations are?
Well, it would be
About 48,000 more.
yeah.
You had 337.
You had 337, and what we're
385.
saying it ought to be
384, 395.
Yeah.
What is it, please?
384,
Yeah.
395.
384,995.
Yeah, that's why I rounded it up to.
So we're at about $1,240,000.
Yeah.
Okay. And your revenue again is $1,150,000. Did I understand that right? Or
$1,115,750.
So we're looking at about $170,000. Loss at this point.
Part of those expenses, Ted, aren't tied to the jail though, that are in that one, that we all talked about. Because you see, you got probation officer and all those office expenses are
Okay,
staggered.
those aren't
Those aren't tied to the jail.
Okay.
And And the dependent children fund's not tied to the jail, it's that, the 865,
Right.
300 plus,
Okay.
what I say.
So we're about, a little over about 915,000 or so in actual jail expense. Is that correct, about 915?
I guess I don't have the,
863
Are you
plus.
talking about the jail, fuel, supplies, lights and water, and the care prisoner?
Yeah, well,
The
I'm
two
just
of them
trying to get
together?
to what our revenue is versus what our direct expenses are to operate the jail. Before we factor in principal and interest on a loan that we have to pay.
Around 903,000, is that pretty close? Dan? I was adding the addition
Oh, on this?
on this one, yeah, for the care prisoners, so we were at 865, 300, and then I added 38,000, which is what we bumped up the
Yeah, but
board prisoners, didn't we?
But then we also have, we got the direct expenses too for fuel supplies, like.
Yeah.
well, the other thing you have to keep in mind about that is that not only are you, I mean, that water, fuel, and lights is not just for inmates, that's for the entire building. So, you'd have to figure, like I said, that, the, Board of Prisoners, the, fuel and lights and water is not figured into that part, it's figured into this, corrections. Basically, I call it our utilities budget. But that includes not only water used by inmates, which are not only paying inmates as well as county inmates, but also the staff.
But the fact is, we're gonna have to pay it, right?
Yeah.
It's part of operating
Right.
the facility.
Right.
Okay.
So about 975,000. Is that where you're at, Ted? Pretty close to there.
Well, yeah, 959. So we got about 975,000 in direct expense, and we've got 1,115,000, assuming March 1 we get 40 prisoners, correct?
Yeah,
For Cook County. What is our Cook County daily reimbursement?
$50, and it'll be paid monthly.
What is the cost to house a prisoner each day?
Well, we figured the cost, roughly around the $13 plus whatever the fuel, lights, and water.
And then jailer, you'd have to figure the jailer's salary somehow on that.
Right, yeah. But there again, you also
How do you
have,
appropriate that between one another?
right, because they're doing the same job for both.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got about 1,115,000 in revenue, and that's at 71, correct? We get to 71, we run that on an annual basis.
Sure.
And
Well, it'll be higher than that if we get 71, because this figure here is just basing on starting 71 in March, Ted.
Yeah,
So if we go to 365 days, it'll be higher than that.
well, we would be closer back to what,
Yeah.
I think the budget
Right.
showed, about 1,270,000 or 1,290,000, somewhere in that range, between the sheriff's numbers and the board numbers, it's slightly off, but it doesn't seem that much. My question is, really, back to the fact of the debt that we have. In this budget, unless I missed it, I don't see debt, principal and interest payments being made. So where's that money gonna come from? The tooth fairy gonna leave it under our pillows? I mean, we've got to operate a county here. And I was at the building commission meeting, and you could see the struggle and angst on their faces last week. And I'm very concerned, really, as a new board member, looking at the long-term feasibility of something that we have built that doesn't look sustainable when you factor in principal and interest. I don't think you can remove that and say that that's not part of operating the gym, because it is. And again, that has nothing to do with you, Sheriff. I'm just asking a general question as a businessman.
Do you have a copy of the whole jail
deal with the resolution, and it has the breakdown of the payments and all that.
Well, I have.
It's basically the contract and the sign.
I've not seen anything.
You haven't seen it? Have you seen it?
No.
I'll try to remember, I'll try to send that out tonight. I think I've got that written down.
Contract for what? What?
It's the contract with the Public Building Commission as far as the monies for how the jail payment plan was set up and how, if we would've left that money in there that was coming from the federal prisoner minus the money we already received from federal prisoners was going into the general fund, any additional monies above that was supposed to go into a separate fund to pay the voting law. Which, with what they had scheduled out as far as appropriations, it should have paid itself off in 1 year. If the county general fund hadn't been taking that money. It's kind of hard to understand. Let me get it sent to you, and we'll go from there on.
And that's fine, and I'm on a learning curve here, so I may ask a lot of questions that seem elementary to some of you senior board members. But I still come back and I look at the effort we have to pay, and I look at the revenue and I look at the direct expenses, and I say to myself, gee, it's not adding up. And that money's gonna have to come from somewhere unless we fall on bonds. And I don't think anybody wants to recommend that we do that. So, I guess my focus is, first of all, I think, getting the revenue into place that really is gonna help us. And getting to the number of 71, I think, starts to at least help with the operations of the jail. But we still have a long-term debt issue, and quite frankly, you know, again, I probably open my mouth way too much, but without a tax increase or some type of levy, how is this thing sustainable going forward? And again, this doesn't have to be decided here tonight, but I'm very concerned as I start to, wade into these numbers. And again, no fault of the sheriff, because he's just reporting what the revenue and the expenses are. But if we've got this debt to manage, I guess, I'm gonna ask the law enforcement committee to really take a hard look at that, because I think as a board, we need to better understand how long-term we're gonna make these principal and interest payments, because they're there, they're due, unless we wanna leave the building commission out there hanging, and I don't think anybody's suggesting that.
Well, we levied 300,000, so there's
Yeah.
$300,000 of the taxpayers' money will go to subsidize part of the jail payments and that. But that's 300, out of 300,000, part of that has to also go to the maintenance of the courthouse and the annex and the jail. Well, let's move on. Do we have any public comment? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I had one question.
Okay.
As long as Tom's here, and I don't know what the interest of everyone here is, but would it disrupt your flow of things there? I mean, I would be interested